Hello class, and welcome to the 8th and final week of History and Systems of Psychology. This lecture video will serve the purpose as to namely reviewing your capstone project as well as the objectives and assignments for week 8. And I also want to touch up on a few housekeeping issues before we wrap up the course. So the first housekeeping issue that I want to address is your evaluation. So as you guys know, the evaluation period has started. I will be sending to you guys the links for the course evaluation, and I like to have these just so I can have a little bit more information on what I need to focus on for next course, whether that's upgrading my lecture videos, enhancing it with more information, providing more information and study guides for your exams and things like that. So these are really helpful for me. And also too, if you watched last week's video, you'll know that I will be granting extra credit for the submission of your evaluations and sending me a screenshotted copy via email of your completed evaluation. So that's another way that you guys can earn extra credit for the week. So let's jump right in. So for this week, of course, you'll have readings to complete. You'll need to read chapters 13 in each read book, as well as there is a review for your final exam, so you can look that over. You do have an exam that's due this week, as well as this discussion board post. So you have quite a bit of information or assignments due this week. So I urge you guys to get started on those. And just as a reminder, all the assignments are due on Friday, not Sunday, but Friday, just as a reminder. So for this week, of course, you'll have your discussion board posts, and it's basically, your reflection of the past 8 weeks, and what you learned, what stood out to you, how did your view of history and psychology change over the course of the class, and what was your initial view and things like that. So that'll be interesting. You'll also have your capstone project. And I want to touch on that a little bit more for this assignment, and it's mainly the focus of this lecture will be the capstone assignment. So let's jump right into that. So you have a couple templates here for you guys to review, and I'll pop them open. So the first is your capstone template. This is just, sorry for the added noise, but this is just an outline of what the capstone should look like. So if you look through these slides, you'll see how it's laid out, things like that. And this is exactly what you'll follow in terms of what I'm looking for this assignment. So this just gives you exactly, a rubric or a printout of what, an example of what I'm looking for. Of course, but you'll add more text in the information, provided thorough information. You'll also provide, graphics and photos and things like that. But also I want to touch on the rubric. So this rubric is quite thorough. And as I mentioned before, you do have to make a significant grade for this capstone in order to pass the course. So for this rubric, this breaks down, all the key components. So if you hit the mark on every single topic of discussion, then you'll do great on this assignment. So the first portion of grading is the historical period. So this consists of at least 4 slides, and you'll need to address the following: an overview of the historical period, identifying major events and philosophical movements. And it's similar to what guys have been doing. However, you'll be selecting one and going into more depth and detail. An explanation of the conceptualization of the diagnosis, including beliefs regarding etiology, symptoms, prognosis, and how individuals were diagnosed. Identification of prevalent treatment approaches for the individuals, whether that's treatment, including therapy, support group therapy, journaling, exercise, wherever you may have it. And those are the typical things that I like to see for that section. For the next section, this would be the historical section, period 2, and that consists of 4 slides, also addressing historical period, identifying major events, things like that. So it's going to be a compilation of quite a bit of the information that we've already discussed. So here, let me jump right back into this. Let me explain the assignment first, and then I'll go into more detail with your rubric. So the project, of course, should identify and discuss how diagnoses have been understood, described, and treated during at least 2 of the time periods covered in class. So whether that's the ancient time period or the Enlightenment time period, modern time period, things like that. You will also, one key component to discuss, you'll trace the historical development of one of the following disorders. So whether that's depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, psychotic disorders, and intellectual disability. So this puts you in a framework to where you specifically focus on one area of disorder, and then you'll follow through what we've learned thus far in the course, whether that's behaviorism, whether that's cognitive therapy, whether that's psychoanalysis, whether that's psychodynamic, and you'll follow that through the time periods and things that we've discussed throughout the course and bring it to what we would do in modern times today. So you'll identify and discuss how diagnosis is understood, described, and treated from one modern day theoretical orientation. So as I just discussed before, either psychoanalytic, cognitive behavioral, humanistic perspective, behavioral perspective, psychodynamic, and things like that. So the section should include an introductory slide presenting an overview of the perspective, including its development, its historical antecedents, and key figures. So as I mentioned before, this ties in directly to what we've been doing in terms of projects before, and how every single assignment I've had you come up with your introductory slide, your overview of your perspective, the development of your perspective, historical antecedents or theories that came before your perspective, and key figures that contributed to this perspective. So it's similar to that. However, you're looking through it through a lens of a specific disorder. You'll include an evaluation of the effectiveness of choosing modern-day theoretical orientation for the treatment of the disorder. You'll also offer discussion of Christian perspectives, per usual. And also, the project should include a thorough critical analysis, which will discuss how the view of diagnosis reflects the worldview/mindset of the various historical periods covered. The project should utilize at least 5 peer-reviewed sources outside of your textbook. So you'll need to have at least 5 journal articles. And then if you're including your textbook, then that will bring your list of references up to 6. So just keep in mind, I will be checking for that as well. And with which, let's see. Yes. So I'm looking for a total of at least 16 informative slides. So your title pages, your subheading pages, and reference pages do not count towards this number. So if you have, for instance, if you have a slide that's completely saying cognitive perspectives continued, that does not count in the count of your total number of slides. It has to have thorough information, and information that is used to support your thoughts and your written content that you're wanting to discuss. Let's see. So as I mentioned before, you have your template that you can follow in terms of what to look for in terms of how I want it to be staged. And as I mentioned before, this rubric follows everything that you need to know to the T in terms of how I am grading this assignment. So I'll scroll down here to organization. So of course the presentation needs to be clear of any spelling errors, things like that. Graphics, illustrations need to be prevalent throughout. And the graphics should be those that are informative, enhancing to your topic at hand. APA formatting, of course, you need to have at least 5 academic sources. Remember to always cite your references, whether that's in the text of the body of your information on your slide or at the far bottom right of yours on every single slide. So I mean every single slide needs to have some sort of citation, or you guys will be missing some points on this, because like I said, this is a capstone assignment and I've discussed that before. And I don't want you guys to be pinned for plagiarism. Let's see. So, and of course, your Christian perspective consists of at least 2 slides, and it has to be a well-developed discussion on the Christian perspective, and how the diagnosis includes all of the following. Of course, number 1, identifying what biblical views regarding the diagnosis and supporting statements, how they coincide with scripture, and also articulating the historical view of the diagnosis in a broader Christian faith tradition, discussing how Christian therapists may approach treatment, and also discussing how the modern day theoretical orientation chosen aligns with and diverges from Christian faith principles, values. So this, of course, needs to be more detailed, more in depth. And I know some of you may struggle with this. You may not be Christian. But I do encourage you guys to dig a little deeper on this in research and review and things like that for these. And as I mentioned before, this needs to be a heavily thorough assignment. I think a lot of times with previous assignments, you guys have been providing some great work. However, sometimes I do see that there's a lack of information. So I'm highly encourage you guys to have a lot of information on this PowerPoint, because it is a capstone, it is a final assignment, so it's very, very important and it needs to be very thorough. Can't stress that enough. And this modern day theoretical orientation, this is the last one I'll be talking about because I already discussed what I wanted for the first 2 components. So this section is a minimum at least 6 slides. So it'll be providing information on the overview, of course, your theoretical orientation, discussing its development, identifying its historical antecedents, identifying major figures. So basically what you're going to be doing is talking about your 2 previous historical perspectives during this historical time period, and then of course talking about a modern day. So hopefully that provides you more clarity if I haven't been as thorough with providing that thus far in the lecture. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. But as I mentioned before, it'll be 2 historical theories and then 1 modern day theoretical orientation. Of course, you'll discuss conceptualization of the diagnosis, prognosis, explaining beliefs regarding etiology, symptoms, prognosis, and how individuals were diagnosed. Also identifying and explaining prevalent treatment approaches and interventions in modern times for the disorder, and evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of theoretical orientation for the treatment of the disorder. So this, of course, needs to be very detailed and very well explained. So, with that being said, also remember too, you have to submit the assignment in 2 places. You'll have to submit the critical assignment through Blackboard, and that will be testing for plagiarism. So as I mentioned before, how it's very, 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 very important for you guys to cite your information. Submitting it through Blackboard is only the first requirement for you guys to receive full credit, and then you'll be submitting it through TaskStream, where I'll ultimately be grading your assignment. So just remember that. Keep in mind that you do have to submit that through there. And also you have a final exam. And as I mentioned before, you do have a review for the final exam, so that should help you out. But overall, that is pretty much it for your assignment. So of course you have your capstone, you have your exam, you'll have your discussion board post. So it's quite a bit of information and quite a bit of things to complete by Friday. But I do want you to remember that it is due on Friday, and we can also check the syllabus just to double check and make sure that that's in fact correct, because I don't want you guys to lose points on any of your assignments. Okay, so yes, your your exam is due on Friday. Your capstone is due on Friday, and your discussion board post is due on Friday. So just keep that in mind. Please remember to get that completed. I do not have much wiggle room on this because grades are due immediately thereafter on Monday. So I just want to make sure that I'm grading everything. So please, 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 if you are having trouble with submitting this assignment, email me and hopefully we can work something out. But just remember that this is due on Friday. And please reach out to me with any questions, comments, concerns. If you have any other concerns about anything throughout the course, whether that's grades, please feel free to reach out to me prior to the end of the course, so we can get those situated for you guys. But as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will help you the best I can. But I hope you all have a great week, and if I don't get to say this to you guys, I really enjoyed having this course with you all, and I hope you guys take some valuable components from this course and take it on to your next journey, and I wish you all the best. Have a good one. Have a great week.